Welcome to the 13th grade. So you decided you want to buy a pair of Gucci shoes. How much exactly does that pair of shoes cost you? Hey guys, welcome back to the 13th grade. Today I want to talk to you about basically the impact on how the things that you purchase can drastically affect not only necessarily your ability to accumulate or build generational wealth, but really your just ability to retire, have a stable income, or potentially the impact it can be on you that you may have to work a lot longer simply because all the income you're spending it. You're learning, you're living on that earn and consume lifestyle. Remember, we talked about very early on that if you want to be successful later on in life, you're going to have to live a little bit uncomfortable early on so that you can live comfortable later on down in life, right? If you live comfortable early on by basically earning and consuming, you go to college, you make a great check, and then you feel you want to reward yourself. So then you go and spend all of your money. Well, I can pretty much assure you that you're going to struggle basically your entire life. There is a big component of time that comes into building wealth and saving for retirement. Money put in at any point in time is better than money never put in, but money put in a lot earlier allows, whether it be compounded interest or even just your compounding assets, to let both of those work. If you get one cycle, which we'll call one cycle every 10 years, so I put money into an IRA, it gets 8 to 10% return. That money's basically doubling every 10 years. If I get one cycle, that means my $1,000 investment is only going to be $2,000. However, if I go in and I get 4 or 5 cycles, the 1,000 turns to two, the two turns to four, the four turns to eight, the eight, 16, 16 to 32, 32 to 64, and so forth. There's an experiment out there that they'll ask people and they'll say, would you rather have $1,000 or one penny doubling for the next 30 days? And I'll let you guys do the math on it. But the power of compounded interest is, let's just say it's strong. So let's say you're out, I don't know, whatever. You got a check, you feel pretty good about yourself. Actually, it's a, traditional thing that whenever you get a good job, the first check, you should always go and, spend the money on something that you always wanted. So, for a girl, it might be a nice purse. For a guy, maybe you go buy, I don't know, belt. If it's a really great job, maybe a watch or something like that, but you kind of splurge on yourself. Let's say, for example, you said, you know what? I've been doing well, got a little bonus at work. I want to go buy a pair of Gucci shoes. And so, just without reference, and it's actually kind of entertaining to me because I actually created this video some time ago, and actually the prices have wildly changed. So this example actually even just gets, like, I don't know, like 10 times worse. But if I was to say to you, for those of you that know, how much do you think this pair of Gucci shoes cost you? And hopefully, I really want you to think about that to really kind of test your knowledge. And I want you to see if you can pick out all the ways or what all the costs are going to be associated with this pair of shoes. Like, what is it really that it costs you? Hopefully, you're a little bit farther along in the 13th grade literacy course. So you're going to pick up on a couple of these of the costs associated with this, but I want to see if you can able to get all of them. So take some time, think about it. What do you think if I said to you, hey, what is the cost associated with, or what is the price to purchase these particular shoes? What do you think it is? Best guess. If you're on YouTube or something, leave in the comments below. I'd be interested. Okay. At the time of me creating this particular video or these particular slides, nearly, I guess, 4 years ago. Now we're recording about 4 years or so later. You could pick up these pair of shoes. I actually own these pair of shoes. Well, not this color, but this kind of styling. from the outlet stores. So let's say you thought, hey, I'm going to be frugal. I listen to this financial literacy guy, and he says you shouldn't go and splurge all your money. So, I've made $1,000. I'm not going to go buy something directly from the Gucci store. I'm going to go to the outlet. I'm going to get something at discount. I'm going to get something that's 50% off. You would come across these shoes in 2018 for $312. Okay. I was actually in Goosey Outlet just the other day for something else. This pair of shoes currently right now is $525. Believe it or not, they actually still sell the exact same shoes 4 years later. For those of you who don't know, when you go to outlets and things like that, and you buy a particular luxury brand, usually that brand's making things specifically for the outlet. You don't oftentimes get the stuff that's actually in the store in the outlet. So just a little bit, just a tidbit of information. So $312. Now, if you were the average individual, let's just say the people that will not be successful in life, they're going to go in and they're going to see something and they're going to say, oh my God, I can't believe it. This pair of shoes was $600 or $624. They're now 50% off. I'm saving $312. Amazing. I'm going to pick up that deal. Like we say this a lot. And it's a psychological thing, and the marketers know about it. But we say this a lot, like, "Oh, I'm saving 50. This is 50% off. I'm saving $300." You're not saving $300. That's marketing. You're spending $312. Like even if it's 50% off, you're still spending money. You're not saving anything. Okay, you're just buying something for cheaper, right? So, if you ever say to yourself, "Oh, I'm saving money. I got 10% off," or "I'm saving 2 grand on it because I negotiated this truck, this new car purchase, and I saved 5 grand on it." You didn't save 5 grand. They just sold you the price. They sold you the car for the price they were going to sell the car anyway. You just went through a bunch of marketing to get to that particular area. And if you didn't go through that marketing process of you negotiating, trying to negotiate down, you just paid even more for it. Okay. So $312 for the Gucci shoes. Now, this one's probably going to be obvious, but you're not actually going to spend $312, right? Because you're going to walk up to the register, and that register, when you go swipe, depending on where you are, and sales tax are actually everywhere, right? But again, it's not $312 because you're going to go pay the tax man. And remember, we hate the tax man, but we got to pay him, right? So let's say you're paying 6% sales tax, just kind of a generic number. Again, where you are could be higher or lower, whatever. You're not going to pay 312. You're going to be paying $330. And so the most of us will say, okay, so yeah, okay, whatever. Sales tax, not a big deal. 312, 330, it's about the same number. Is it? Is it really? Is it the same number? Obviously, no, it's not the same number. It's $28 more. And hopefully you know the impact of $28 going forward if you've been in this course. Now, so let's on that subject. So $330. You're like, oh, Craig, great. I spent $330. However, there's a concept out there, which is basically what is the value of what I'm spending today over time? Now, remember, you know this because whenever anybody does any kind of investments, right? Even if you're not financially savvy, when you go purchase, like say, a house, for example, in most cases, people understand and they say, well, I want to buy a house because I don't want to throw money away in a rent. Because when I throw money away in a rent, it's just gone. But if I take that money and I put it towards a house, at least I'm paying down the house and eventually I own the house. And most people understand that even though I'm purchasing it today, say for $300,000, it's generally going to go up in value. And then eventually it's going to be worth maybe 400,000 or 600,000 or whatever it goes up to, right? Most people understand value today is different than value tomorrow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the exact same thing works actually for purchasing, right? And so you could say to yourself, well, I'm going to buy these shoes for $330. Well, it's not 330. Well, it's $330 today, but really what is the value of that money over time as it relates to your main goal, which is to reach financial freedom, to reach generational wealth, to retire at the age of 35, to be able to travel the world, to be able to buy a Ferrari, whatever it is. So in the beginning of this course, remember we talked about, we want you to write down your why. And your why might be like, well, I want to retire early so I can spend more time with family. Or I want to retire early so that I can, go travel the world or volunteer. Or I may not want to retire early, but I want to accumulate a certain sum of funds or certain sum of type of money so that I can do this particular thing. And again, in most cases, we're just trying to get rid of having to obligate ourselves to something so we can go pursue a life of fulfillment or a life of our passions, which is a life of fulfillment and true happiness, right? And so if you're not in this course and you're like, I don't have any dreams, I kind of just want to work forever. Well, then why are you in this course, right? Obviously, it doesn't make sense. So what we're saying to you is when you place $330 on the table, whether it be a cash or you swipe a card, you are basically saying is I'm going to take today's pleasure of having these particular shoes and whatever pleasure that gives you for to rob me of my goals that I might have for later on down in life. Now, let's just say that we all have the exact same goals, and that generally what we're looking for is we want to retire as quickly as possible. And we want to be able to retire at the income level that we need to be like, we need to reach a certain income level and we need to have a certain amount of cash coming in, whether we follow the Dave Ramsey method or the Grant Cardone method, it doesn't really matter. We need a certain kind of income coming in. And so our goal is a nice, secure retirement, most generic goal in the world, right? And so when we purchase 330, how does that affect that? Well, that's simple. If we didn't spend the 330, right? And we just decided, we're not going to wear the Gucci shoes. We're just going to continue to keep rocking the old ass shoes that we have for another year. Back when I was a kid, we wore shoes for like a year and a year and a half before we got another pair. We had one pair of shoes. Now people have 15, 20, 30 pairs of shoes. Some of them all designers. It's crazy, right? And so if I didn't purchase the 330, what is that value really in the future? Because that's really the true cost. Because remember, we're not playing for today, we're always playing for tomorrow. The millionaire mindset, the 1% mindset is always doing something with purpose, always purchasing with purpose, and always looking towards the future and saying, how does that affect my ultimate goal? You will never reach your goal in business, in life, in relationship if you're not constantly making small decisions every single day that add up to the end result of being or achieving that particular goal. When you're doing any kind of goal setting, they always say pick the goal and then reverse engineer it. What do you need to be doing every single day to ensure that you hit that goal, right? Obviously, it makes sense. In this particular case, if we didn't purchase the shoes for 330, and let's say we just did something simple, like we put those into an S&P index fund, and we got our 8 to 10%, the most generic, simple, basic investment thing that you can do. I'm going to say no risk, but just whatever, just throw it in there, let it ride, right? This pair of shoes would cost you $9,647, a pretty big sum of money. Now, for most people, they're like, okay, great. So I get it. It costs more. If I didn't spend the 330, I could have got more money. But let's actually really look at what that is. So remember when we talked about when we did our FIRE number, and I kind of used the same number throughout the entire course. And I did that for a reason because we're going to kind of keep going back to it. Remember when I said like, hey, we just want to retire off like 60,000 in today's dollars, and that would give us about 5 grand a month. And then, we felt pretty comfortable with that, right? Well, this one small purchase of $330, right? What that means is, again, we're not going to have 9,647. Let's just be favorable and round that up. And let's say it's $10,000. So that one pair of Gucci shoes that you bought today that you saved 50% on, but you end up spending $330, robbed you of 2 months of retirement. So hopefully that makes sense to you, right? Because what we're actually saying here is we're saying instead of retiring at 65 with all the money that you need so that you can withdraw $5,000 every month until the foreseeable future, instead of that, you had to work 2 months longer because you'd never put the 330 in the account. So you never accumulated the $10,000 that you'll eventually withdraw. So let that sink in. Now, how many decisions do we make throughout the day, throughout the year, throughout the several years that rob us of they add a little 2 months and then they add another month and then they add 3 months and then we get a new car and then we spent an extra $8,000. Well, that added some more months and then that added some more months and then this added some more months. And then eventually we get to a point where we reach 65 and we say, hey, we're nowhere clear to our goal that we need to be. we really got to work another 5 years. We got to work another 10 years because I know where I need to be. And if we look at the statistics that we did at the State of America in like lesson 2 or 3, we realize that 46% of Americans have no retirement savings whatsoever. And of the ones that do, it's like 100 grand, folks. It's not even close to where it needs to be. The reason is we keep buying Gucci shoes, but it gets much worse than this. These shoes did not cost $330. And now, this is the part actually of this video that I really, really want you to start to think about. Okay. And that is your income when you go to work every single day. Let's say you make, again, 40 hours a week, you make $20 an hour. So you're making $800, right? A week. The baseline before anything else is taken out, you made $800. You exchanged your time for a certain dollar amount. That was $800. From that point, that $800, that is as an investor, as somebody is the one percenter, as somebody that will create generational wealth, you want to be thinking about how do I keep as much of that $800 as I can? And then in addition to that, how do I increase that by investing? And how do I get the highest return on investment without ensuring other people don't come make my money, which is taking out really bad debt, taxes, whatever it is. If you go back to the tax portion of it, you'll probably realize that taxes, again, are the biggest drain that we have. Okay, so what do these actually cost us? The answer is $424. And the reason is, and I use some generic tax brackets for that. If you want to see how much it actually costs you, you want to go find your income, go back to the tax bracket and figure out what you're being taxed on. But you are essentially making $424. Let's say you're taxed at 22%. So you're in that tax bracket, right? Plus state and local tax. If you made $424, you will then have netted the $330 that you can use to then go pay the sales tax to then go purchase the shoes. Okay. Within your one purchase, which within that sales tax of $312, there is actually about $93 you're going to pay in payroll tax. So that's federal withholding, that is Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the actual sales tax, which is going to be specific to your particular area. Some sales tax goes like almost into the double digits, right? So you have to calculate based on yourself. What I'm saying to you is that when you go look at to purchase those particular shoes, when you see 312, I need you to understand that it's not $312. It's $312 plus sales tax plus the income tax that you paid based on the income that you earned, negative minus to get to that sales price of 312. So if we put 330 in an S&P index funds for 45 years and get an 8 to 10% return, and that amount of money added up to 9,647, what was the actual purchase price of these particular shoes? The answer, guys, is $13,110, right? Now, again, you can be thinking to yourself and you could say, well, wait a minute. If I go get a check for $800, I'm still going to have to pay all those taxes. So I'm still going to net less than that. Not necessarily. Remember when we go back to investing with the idea of taxes in mind, there are ways that you can take your raw income, your gross income, the full $800, and place it into an account where you get to keep the entire thing and then let that money ride at 8 to 10% return. So if you didn't do that, right, instead of like if you earned $424, let's say you took that entire amount and you put it again in the S&P index fund, that little bit of money, $13,110. That gets in the reference of around almost 3 months or 2.5 months of your retirement. So just a small example, quick video, but I want you to really, really think about it and let that sink in. Imagine we're just talking here about a little pair of shoes for $300. Imagine doing this now if you were purchasing, multiple pairs of shoes or you're going to go purchase a Rolex watch, or you purchased maybe a couple of different watches, or you're turning your cars over every 3 years. How much money are you taking by living on the earning and consume lifestyle and basically just washing it away? This $312 pair of shoes, I can guarantee you, like 5, 10 years, you're not even gonna have any more. Some of y'all keep stuff for like 6 months and then it's gone. You're literally robbing your future self of the freedom and the retirement simply because you're living for today's pleasures. Now, the purpose of this course, don't get me wrong, is to ensure that you can purchase those things. However, we only purchase those things after we've accumulated our retirement. So once we've put enough of our 312 or $424 into an accounts, into assets, into other investments or whatever, and those assets start to return us return on investment, we can then take our regular W-2 income or whether income source or the actual cash flow itself and then go purchase the fun stuff. And we can do that because that's an endless stream of money that's always going to be there for the foreseeable future as long as while we're here on earth. If you exchange your time for money, then essentially you're just doing that. You're exchanging your time for money, and then you're taking that money and you're basically flushing down the toilet, which means you have to go and spend more time. That's what we're trying to avoid. You want to spend your time to earn money, let that money buy you assets, put it into investments or whatever. And when that money makes you money, your time is out of the equation. You take the money, then you go buy the things you need because it's endless. And again, it doesn't require your time, which is why we purchase things later in life. Again, if you live uncomfortable early on by not earning and consuming and by investing, you will live comfortable later on down the road when those investments start to give you a return on investment. If you live comfortable early on by earning and consuming and never putting investments, you will need to sit and earn and earn and earn well past your retirement age. And that's the difference.